So another special consideration that the IEP team must consider is peer and role models for kids, opportunities for direct communication with peers and professionals. For many students who are deaf and hard of hearing, communication challenges can create isolation and loneliness. You can imagine that that would happen to you if you were 7 years old and your family moved to a rural village in Japan and no one else in the entire school spoke English. You would feel lonely, you would feel isolated, it would be hard to communicate with the kiddo in the table next to you. The opportunity to communicate and have meaningful relationships with peers has to be a consideration in the development of every child's IEP. Being able to communicate directly with your teacher, with your interpreter, is also part of that consideration. For kids at WSD, the School for the Deaf in Vancouver, or large regional programs in Washington, which there are several, Edmonds, Pasco, Puyallup, Tacoma, they have large programs. There are opportunities all day long for kids to have direct communication, both with teachers and with peers, with older kids and with younger kids. But for some students in the mainstream programs, it's up to the IEP team to have discussions about how to effectively bring that kind of communication opportunity to them, because it doesn't exist at school. It has to be brought to them. Least restrictive environment is driven by the child's language, communication, academic, and social needs. All four: language, communication, academic, and social needs. If the environment can provide for all four needs, then it is not restrictive. It's the best placement for them because it allows them to access language needs, communication, academic, and social needs. It is restrictive if it is close to home, but it cannot provide for those students, that student's language needs. In looking at this slide, where do we find opportunities? Consider a placement setting where a student has a critical mass, one of those larger regional programs. Consider that as being something that might be best for this student, where there are more students or critical mass. The potential peers next year and the following year, are they the only student in their grade level, or they're only student in the elementary level? That kind of thing is something that every IEP team has to consider. What is their access to the deaf community? Are there opportunities where the deaf community comes to school to read stories, to tell stories, read books, tell about their own experiences? So what can you do? What actions can you take? One idea is to just create a section in your library, elementary or secondary, that has a section on deafness. There's a lot of books that have deaf children as characters in the story, which is great for kids to see themselves in a story. Opportunities for pen pals, connecting with a deaf and hard of hearing role model program. Having sign language taught to the class, to the school, having an ASL club for after school is a great way to get kids to a place where they have peers to communicate with. Developing curricula that explores the contributions that other people have made to the deaf world. Like there's books on successful deaf Americans, famous deaf Americans, deaf history. There is there's opportunities for communities for activities like family camp that we have at the beginning, the first weekend in May every year. There is a deaf fiesta that happens in Ellensburg for Spanish-speaking families with deaf and hard of hearing kids. There are coffee chats all over the state. There are deaf service center activities in several different communities. There are family nights. So think about creating, if you're not near a program that has lots of kids, think about creating a community. How can you create a community for deaf and hard of hearing kids? So maybe once a month, all of the kids in the school district get together. Deaf kids that are young can meet the older deaf kids and realize that they're not alone, that child also has a cochlear implant or has a hearing aid, and their experiences may be very similar to the young child's experiences, and they have that in common and can share that. That would create direct communication with peer and with adults.